Hello, everyone. Dr. Eames here. This time I'd like to talk about the marketing mix. What we have here are some goals that mean we want to satisfy customers. We want to make sure that we fulfill their needs and provided some sort of value. And that's really what the marketing mix attempts to accomplish. It's everything that you do to get your message out about your product. And so we call it the four P's, which are product, price, place, and promotion. Um, all of these categories have to work together in a balanced mix that really do reach the consumers uh, who you've identified as needing or wanting your product or service, and then provide them some reason to engage with you as much as possible. So that means we have to design our product to actually fulfill their needs. So here you have some definitions. Our product is any physical good or anything that satisfies a want or need. So it can also be a service. But it's got to be perceived in the eyes of the consumer as accomplishing that. Now, before we launch products, we always do some test marketing. And this is a way to find out how people react, what they think about it initially, their first exposure to the product or service, and so forth. Over time, if you are adding new products, then your brand name is really important. If you don't have products yet, then building that brand name and that image is really got to be one of your highest priorities. And a brand name can be anything that identifies you to the public. So it could be just a simple word or an acronym of some type. But whatever it is, and a lot of times it'll be tied up with the design of a logo and so forth. Um, but it can be a product or a service that we provide to people. And there's always a risk in developing that new market. So that's why we do this test marketing before we completely invest in our idea. And that it is about finding out the attitudes and customer perceptions and so forth to really make an informed decision about is this a viable idea or not. Now, if you don't have that brand name already established, then you can do some licensing and maybe get a halo effect from someone else's good brand image and so forth. But you need a mechanism in some way to get your product noticed. You're always trying to increase your brand awareness, your brand image, your overall reputation, and you want to push it forward at every opportunity. So we come to price. Price depends on so many different factors. Um, and the specific factors of the competitors' prices, the costs of making the product or providing the service, distributing the goods, promoting it itself, those things depend on the industry, the product itself, or the service. So you ask yourself a variety of questions and you're trying to inform research to find out the answers. For instance, what are the competitors' prices? How does our quality or our service match up to our competitors? What is our overall costs of producing? And if we have distribution involved, what is the cost of that? Um, and more important decisions, who should we work with in our supply chain to get those sorts of things done with distribution and so forth? And finally, what will the promotional costs be? So when we consider all that stuff, then we really are on our way to figuring out, can we get the product where it's wanted and needed? And so we really have to spend some time on that supply chain and getting the right companies to work with, our intermediaries, in other words. These are really important players for us. And they help us hit the markets that we want and get the products to where they need to be. And so that means we have to develop strategies. We used to call this advertising a generation or so ago. Today it's promotional strategy. It goes beyond what our definition of advertising really is. And so promotion is all those techniques that you're going to use as a seller to let people know what you have, what your product is, what your service is. And somewhere in that promotional message, one of the biggest thrusts has to be an inspirational or motivational sort of appeal that gets them to actually part with their money and purchase your product or service. So as you can see, promotion can be complicated. There are a lot of elements to it, and depending on your industry and the product or service, of course, conditions are going to apply that affect how much of each of these you do. So you have regular advertising and so forth. which is an older style of reaching people. It's more of a shotgun approach. You put it out there. You hope you will reach enough people that are interested or have a want or a need that you can solve. But we go beyond that today. Personal selling may be involved. It may not. It just depends on if you have face-to-face contact with the consumer somewhere in the process or not. You always want to have good public relations. You want to release press releases, for instance, whenever you've accomplished something good, whenever you've added a feature to a product, or indeed added a new product line. Let the word go out there. Use the publicity that you can gather. Sometimes you have to pay for it and so forth. Sometimes you can get a free mention in a newspaper or some publication or even on television or radio. Um, don't discount the power of word of mouth. Consumers talking up your product, increasing your brand awareness and image by actually mentioning it to others. Word of mouth does work. Some companies rely on it completely, like Zappos, which is a completely online company that started by selling shoes and now sells products across the board. They have no advertising budget. They are so strong with repeat customers, and the way they treat their customers is so powerful that word of mouth works for them. And they spend that money they save on promotional strategies and invest it in the time that's needed to connect with customers. And then, of course, the big thing is sales promotions. Can we put together some sort of program to advance our interests of the product or the service that puts our brand name out there and gets people aware so they will connect with us as a producer? Okay, folks, that's all I want to talk about this time. I'll talk to you again soon.